皆さんこんにちは、メタトロンです。本日も私の一番好きな妖怪について話したいです。それではこれから5つの妖怪の説明したいと思います。もちろん英語で。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。Hello number ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. And today we are back with the Yokai series episode 3, and I'm very happy to be able to continue this series about the Japanese folklore and myths and mythology. I find it particularly interesting, first of all, because as you know, I have studied exactly these things at university. So I am browsing through my old university books and notes. Secondly, I'm very happy because I noticed that you like it, and in fact, in my latest video on the second episode of the Yokai series, I have asked some of you to give me a hand, perhaps supporting me monetarily through Patreon, and you have. So I have received some interesting, some good donations. I am very, very grateful for those. And this allows me to continue this show and set aside some time. So we will continue with this Yokai series. I will bring as many yokai as I possibly can, of course always alternating with weapons and armors and history and languages, because I want everyone to be basically happy. Okay, I just want to make everyone happy. But on the other hand, considering the monetary support I'm receiving, I will at the moment I'm considering picking, at the end of the series, I will consider picking 3 of the yokai that I have talked about and actually make a very long and detailed video per each of these 3 yokai. And of course I will ask you for a vote in the future, and we will see which one we will pick. So thank you very much for your help. So for today I have chosen 5 more yokai that I find myself particularly interesting. Now if you remember in the latest episode, and by the way, if you haven't watched episode 1 and episode 2 on Yokai, then I will leave the links down below, and I will put clickable links at the end of this video. But in the latest episode I started with the Yōkai, the snow woman, and so today I've decided to start with another weather creature or weather onna, and it is indeed the Ame-onna. The Ame-onna, the rain woman. And normally they are supposedly appearing in dark streets, sometimes dark and bleak alleys, but even on mountains. So if you are in feudal Japan, you're wandering off in a mountain and it's a rainy day, you want to be careful. Now this is a very interesting class of yokai. If we want to describe the appearance of a Ame-onna, they normally appear as depraved and haggish women, and they are of course soaked with rainwater, which they seem to use as a form of nourishment, as they appear to be licking their own arms to drink this rainwater. Although they may be somehow related to the original rain deities of Buddhism, Shinto and other Far Eastern traditions, they are definitely not benevolent spirits. And in fact, one of the things that they do is to snatch children away, particularly if those children during those rainy nights that perhaps keep on screaming or crying, those would become their prey. And supposedly these children that they just spirit away will turn into Ame-onna, and so will their mothers. Upon the grief and sorrow for having lost their child, they will eventually turn into Ame-onna as well. And these specific Ame-onna coming from these grieving mothers are reported to be seen carrying bags as they are seeking for newborn babies they can steal away to recover from their loss. Secondly, we go back to the Yūrei, the ghosts. And the kind of ghost we are using today is similar to what a onryo is. So it is a sort of vengeful spirit, but it is a very specific one. We are talking about the Funayūrei. Funayūrei, the ship ghosts. This is a sort of a particular kind of vengeful spirit. So again, quite similar to the concept of onryo we have already talked about in my previous installment of this series, but they are very specific because they are the ghosts or spirit of drowned sailors, people who have died in the sea. So of course these would be seen in seas, oceans, but sometimes also bays. As far as their appearance is concerned, they look like dead bodies wearing a funerary white robe, and apparently they can be seen at night when the moon is either new or full. So if you were a samurai in feudal Japan who was sailing on a boat, perhaps with other samurai, you would definitely be looking out for stormy, foggy nights, because if you do see a luminescent mist, you know that that could turn into a ship with a ghostly crew. And clearly this sort of apparition is not benevolent at all. In fact, their main purpose is to drown everyone and bring as many people down under the water with them as they can. And they will apparently attack human ships, trying to have them sink, using ladles and buckets full of seawater, as their main endeavor will be to try and bring as much water as possible into their target ship. Number 3 in this list is a highly requested one, and I was very happy to see it requested because it's actually one of my favorite, and it is indeed the Vulcan Keaton. I don't know why, but I find this yokai to be particularly fascinating. Maybe because I like foxes, but also because it has something mysterious to it. And I have to say, for those of you who are gamers, do you remember a very old game for Xbox, the original Xbox, called Jade Empire? Well, that is one game that if you haven't tried, you should, because it's a fantastic game. And I played it through twice, finished it, and yes, there was a kitsune in that game, although it takes place in China. But we do have to remember that many of the myths we have in Japan do come originally from China. So let's see what exactly a kitsune is and what powers they supposedly have. Cute-faced, small in size, we all like foxes, don't we? Well, the thing is that in both Japanese and Chinese mythology, foxes have always occupied a very important role. Now, interestingly enough, within the Shinto, so merely Japanese, but within the Shinto deity, Inari, we have these foxes that represent celestial entities which bring wisdom and particularly act as messengers for the Shinto gods. And we can appreciate this in actual shrines, Shinto shrines dedicated to the deity Inari, which will normally have decorations of foxes. Thing is though, that within Japanese law, there aren't only benevolent or good foxes that actually serve the gods. In fact, they tend to be the minority. The majority of these yokai or supernatural foxes tend to be wild. So these wild foxes normally delight in mischief, pranks and tricks. But some of these can also be evil. They possess humans, making them do very weird and strange things. But apart from the evil foxes, some of the common characteristics of these mythical and mystical foxes is that they always keep their promises, they remember friendships, and they repay favors. According to some tales, some of these foxes actually used their abilities and powers to punish wicked men, particularly wicked priests. The kitsune are said to be extremely intelligent, and sometimes they have shape-shifting abilities. Some of these shape-shifting abilities allow them to take human form. And when they do so, they actually tend to integrate and mingle within the human society, so much so as to actually sometimes get married and even have a full family and live with humans. Reportedly, if you get one of these human-shaped kitsune drunk, some of the shape-shifting powers will start to have problems, and you will recognize them upon noticing perhaps a patch of vulpine fur or a tail. Number 4 in this list is a particularly powerful one. In fact, perhaps it should have been number 1, or at least he is supposedly the number 1 yokai, the commander of all monsters. We are talking about the mysterious and sometimes funny Nurarihyon. Nurarihyon, the slippery goat, as one would translate the kanji. Now, this is an interesting entity. Regardless of its looks, it's supposedly the most powerful and important of all yokai, the supreme commander of all monsters. Now, this sort of entity doesn't seem to be malevolent. It doesn't seem to attack or bring any misfortune to humans. But one of the things these Nurarihyon do is to visit brothels, expensive villas, and particularly red light districts. They will visit even households when they are extremely busy in the evenings, for example, and they will easily help themselves inside the home, start eating all the expensive and luxurious food that you have, and perhaps help themselves to some tea leaves to start drinking. And what's interesting is that probably because of their powers, everyone shows and respect to these entities. All the yokai do, and the humans gladly follow. In fact, if a Nurarihyon were to come to your home, you would accept him, you would serve him, and only upon waving goodbye and bowing to him as he departs from your home, you will start noticing that something indeed was weird and odd and strange, if not bizarre, about the elderly man who has just visited your home. As far as their appearance is concerned, they are reported to have elongated heads, wrinkled face, and they always wear very elegant and smart silk kimonos or expensive, rich Buddhist robes. Depending on the area of Japan, they are also reported to have perhaps marine origins, and perhaps they might be linked to other creatures, such as the umibozu. Now, considering the fact that I closed my latest installment of this series with an animal-related yokai, and it was indeed the Inugami, the divine dog, well, today I've decided to close with another animal-related yokai, and it is indeed the Bakeneko. Now, I particularly like the Bakeneko, maybe because I am obsessed with cats. Yes, you didn't know this, but I love cats. It's indeed my favorite animal, particularly as far as pets are concerned, of course. And I love cats, and so I particularly appreciate this very intriguing, shape-shifting, powerful version of a cat from Japanese folklore. These cats originate from normal cats who actually start to get old, and as cats get old, according to Japanese law, they also start getting powers. Now, if for a cat to become a Bakeneko, but first of all, he needs to be a quite old cat, above 13 years old, and it needs to be rather heavy, probably towards the fat side, so 3.75 kilograms being the limit. So if the cat is elderly enough and fat enough, he might become a Bakeneko, and you will recognize that by the length of its tail. In fact, if a cat is about to turn into a Bakeneko, his tail will be particularly long, very, very long. So they have an ability to stand up, like similarly to humans, and they will grow in size, reaching even the same height as a human. Now, normally they are not particularly violent and not particularly dangerous, but they will bring misfortune and curse upon the households they belong to. Occasionally being reported to eat humans. It's not something that happens very often in tales, but if it does happen, the cat will inherit the ability to actually shapeshift and take the same appearance of the human he has just eaten. Some of the ways they also use their powers is to summon ghostly fireballs, which tend to set accidentally houses on fire, and reanimate fresh corpse to play with, entertain themselves, or for other nefarious reasons. A fun fact about these Bakeneko is that when they disguise themselves as humans, they normally tend to wrap a towel around their head and dance around happily. Alright, number ones, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content from the Metatron. If you appreciate this sort of content, please consider sharing it on your social networks and with your friends. I will be expecting you tomorrow for my next daily upload. And remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Saraba!